I should be dead. Not figuratively. Not the kind of dead people talk about when they say they were tired or broken. I mean the real kind. The kind where they close the casket and the preacher says something nice about a man he barely knew. I'm Roosevelt. I'm 82 years old. And in the last 40 years of my life I watched everything I had built, everything I worked for, prayed for, bled for, collapse, not once, not twice, 5 times, maybe more if I'm counting the smaller falls, and I'm still here. I'm not here because I was strong. I'm not here because God liked me better than the men I buried. I'm here because of 5 choices, 5 specific moments where I could have gone one way and I went another. And those choices are the reason I'm sitting in this chair talking to you, instead of being a name on a headstone somewhere in Birmingham, Alabama. I've been sitting on these words for 20 years, waiting for the right time to say them. But Lord knows, at 82, you stop waiting for the right time. There is no right time. There's only one now. There's only this. So if you're listening, and I mean really listening, not just filling time on your phone while the world passes by, then stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you took me 82 years to learn, and I'm going to give it to you in the next few minutes. Absolutely free. The only thing I ask is that you don't waste it. Subscribe to this channel right now before we go any further. Not for me, for you. Because this is the kind of place where old men come to tell the truth, and you need to hear more of it. I was born in 1942 in Birmingham, Alabama. If you know your history, you know what that means. If you don't, well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? My father's name was Elijah. He worked at the steel mill on the south side of town, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. He came home smelling like smoke and metal, and something else I couldn't name when I was a child. I know what it was now. It was exhaustion, not the kind you sleep off, the kind that lives in your bones. My mother, Miriam, cleaned houses for white families on the other side of town. She'd leave before the sun came up and come back after it went down. And every night, no matter how tired she was, she sat at the kitchen table with me and my brother Nathaniel, and she made us read. Out loud, she said, "Roosevelt, the one thing they cannot take from you is what you know. Put it in your head. Lock it there." I didn't understand what she meant when I was 7 years old. I understand it perfectly now. By the time I was 19, I had watched my father work himself into a hospital bed. Hypertension. The doctors said it like it was just a word. My mother nodded like she had already known it was coming, and I stood in that hallway. A hallway I wasn't entirely sure they wanted me in, and I made my first choice. I chose to stay. Every man in my neighborhood who had the chance to leave Birmingham in 1961 took it. Went to Detroit. I went to Chicago. Followed the Great Migration north, looking for something cleaner, something less suffocating. And I understood why. Lord knows I understood why. But my father was in that hospital bed. My mother was cleaning those houses. Nathaniel was 16 and already running with boys who were heading nowhere good. I stayed. That was the first choice, and it cost me. It cost me friendships. It cost me opportunities. For a long time, I thought it cost me everything. But it didn't. What staying did, what I couldn't see until decades later, was it gave me roots. And when the storms came, and they came hard, roots were the only thing that kept me standing. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because before the storms came, the world I knew had to fall apart first. I got married in 1966. Her name was Vivian, She was from Selma. She had seen things in March of 1965 that I hadn't seen. Not because I wasn't paying attention, but because some things you have to witness with your own eyes to carry them the right way. Vivian carried the bridge. Edmund Pettus Bridge. She carried it in her body for the rest of her life. We built something together, small but ours. A house on the east side of Birmingham. A daughter, Celeste, born in 1968, the same year they took Dr. King from us. I remember holding Celeste on April 4th of that year, and the radio playing, and Vivian going quiet, in a way I had never heard a person go quiet before. Like the silence had weight. I worked at the mill like my father, but I also took night classes, accounting, because my mother's words never left me. Put it in your head, lock it there. By 1974, I had a job at a small firm downtown. First black man in that office. They made sure I knew it, too. Not always with words, sometimes with where they seated me, sometimes with which clients they sent my way, sometimes with the silence when I walked into a room that had been loud a second before. But I stayed. Again. I stayed and I worked, and I told myself that was enough. Then 1979 came. My brother Nathaniel was arrested. He had been in and out of trouble for years. I had bailed him out twice, argued with him, prayed for him, sent him money I didn't always have. In 1979, they gave him 15 years for something that, if he had been a different color in a different neighborhood, would have gotten him probation. I sat across from Nathaniel in that visiting room, and I looked at my brother, my little brother, who used to steal biscuits off my mother's kitchen counter, and I saw the thing that happens to a man when a system decides he is expendable. I saw it happen in real time, right in front of me. That was the second collapse. And here is the second choice. I chose not to let it make me bitter. I want you to understand how hard that was. I want you to understand that choosing not to be bitter is not the same as choosing to be happy. It is not passive. It is one of the most violent acts of will a human being can perform. Because bitterness is easy. Bitterness makes sense. Bitterness is the logical response to an illogical world. But I had seen what bitterness did to men. It ate them from the inside out, slow and quiet, until there was nothing left but the shell of a person who used to have dreams. I refused, not because I wasn't angry. I was furious. I am still furious, if I'm honest with you, but I chose to carry the anger as fuel, not as poison. If you're still listening, and I hope you are, I want you to subscribe to this channel right now, because we're only halfway through, and what comes next is the part that almost ended me for good. Vivian died in 1987. Breast cancer. She was 44 years old. I am going to say that again, slowly, because I think people hear numbers and they don't feel them. 44 years old. She had carried the bridge. She had raised Celeste through some of the hardest years in Birmingham's history. She had sat beside me when I couldn't speak and spoken for me. She had laughed at things that should not have been funny, and somehow that laughter was what kept the house from going dark. And then she was gone. I am not going to dress this up for you. I fell apart. There is no other way to say it. I stopped going to work. I stopped eating the way a man should eat. I sat in the chair that used to be hers, right there by the window, and I watched the street outside, and I thought about nothing and everything at the same time. Celeste was 19. She came home from college. She shouldn't have had to, but she did. She sat across from me at that kitchen table, the same table where my mother used to make Nathaniel and me read out loud. And she said, "Daddy, I need you to come back. Now I love you. Now it's going to be okay." She said, "I need you to come back." And that was the third choice. I came back. Not all at once. Not the next morning. It took months. But I made the decision that day that I was not going to let grief be the last chapter. That I owed Vivian more than a slow disappearance. That I owed Celeste a father, not a ghost. You think grief is something that happens to you? And it is. But there comes a moment, and it's different for everyone, but it comes where grief asks you a question. It says, "Are you going to let me have you? Or are you going to take yourself back?" I took myself back, but Lord, the tests weren't finished with me yet. In 1993, I lost my job. The firm downsized, that's what they called it. Downsizing, a clean word for something that isn't clean at all. I was 51 years old. I had worked at that firm for 19 years. I had never missed a deadline. I had never failed a client. I had built a reputation that I was proud of, genuinely proud, the kind of pride that doesn't need anyone else to confirm it. And I was the first one they let go. I don't know for certain why. I never will. But I know what I saw in that office for 19 years. I know which men got promoted and which ones got thanked for their service. I know what the silence in certain rooms sounded like. And I know that at 51, with a black face in gray at my temples, I was not what that firm was trying to carry into the future. I was angry, again, the old anger, the one I had been carrying as fuel since Nathaniel's arrest. But this time, there was something new in it. There was despair, because at 51, the world does not make it easy to start over. At 51, you are too old for the young people and too young for the retired people. You are in a no-man's land, and if you are a black man in America in 1993, you know that no man's land is a place they built for you specifically. For 3 months, I did nothing. And then I made the fourth choice. I started my own practice. I want to be honest with you about how terrifying that was. I had no clients. I had a small amount of savings. I had Celeste's encouragement and a tiny office I rented for $300 a month in a building that smelled like old paper and something I never identified. I had my mother's words, "Put it in your head, lock it there," and I had 40 years of knowing how to do the work. The first client came from my church, the second from a neighbor. By the end of 1994, I had enough to pay myself a modest salary and keep the lights on. By 1998, I had 4 employees. By the time I retired in 2009, at 67, because I wasn't ready to stop at 65, I had built something that was genuinely mine. Nobody gave it to me. Nobody opened a door for me. I built it in the space between the doors that stayed closed. On that fourth choice, to build instead of collapse, is the one I think about most often now, because it came at the moment when giving up would have been completely understandable, when everyone who knew my situation would have nodded and said, "Roosevelt, you did your best. It's okay to rest now. Understanding is a trap. Don't fall into it." The fifth choice is the hardest one to talk about. Not because it was the most dramatic. It wasn't. There was no crisis, no hospital, no letter in the mail. The fifth choice happened quietly, on an ordinary Tuesday morning in 2015, when I was 73 years old and sitting in this same chair, looking out this same window. I had everything I had worked for. Celeste was healthy and happy and had 2 children of her own, my grandchildren, Marcus and Diane. My business had been sold successfully, and I had a pension, a house that was paid for, my health for a man my age. And I realized I had not spoken to anyone in 4 days, not a real conversation, not the kind where someone looks at you and you look at them, and something passes between you that matters. I had said good morning to a cashier at the grocery store. I waved at my neighbor from the driveway, but I had not connected with another human being in 4 days. And I understood, sitting in that chair, that I had spent so much of my life surviving, fighting, building, refusing, recovering, that I had never learned how to simply be present with the people I loved. I had always been on my way somewhere, always had the next battle in the back of my mind. Vivian had known this about me. She used to put her hand on my face and say, "Roosevelt, come back." And the same words Celeste used when Vivian died. They had both been calling me back from the same place, and I hadn't listened, not fully. So, on that Tuesday morning in 2015, I called Celeste. I didn't call her because something was wrong. I called her because something was right, because I finally understood that presence is not a reward you give yourself after you've finished surviving. Presence is the survival. That was the 5th choice, to stop waiting to live now. And I want to ask you, right now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, what are you waiting for? You think you'll slow down when the project is done. You think you'll call your mother when things settle. You think you'll tell the people you love what they mean to you when the moment is right. You think. I am 82 years old. I have buried my wife, my brother, my parents, and more friends than I can count on both hands. And I am telling you, with everything I have left, the moment is always right. The moment is always now. And the moment you keep waiting for is leaving without you, one ordinary Tuesday at a time. 5 choices. That's what kept me alive when everything collapsed. I chose to stay when leaving was easier. I chose not to become my bitterness. I chose to come back from grief when grief tried to become my whole life. I chose to build in the space where a door had been closed. And I chose to stop surviving and start living. None of those choices were easy. All of them cost me something, but all of them gave me more than they took. I want you to sit with that, not just hear it. Sit with it, because you are going to face your own collapses. Maybe you already have. Maybe you're in the middle of one right now. And when you are, when everything falls and the smoke hasn't cleared yet, and you can't see 2 feet in front of you, I want you to remember that there is always a choice, even in the rubble, especially in the rubble. The choice doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be brave the way they show bravery in the movies. Sometimes the choice is just, today I will not give up, and then tomorrow, today I will not give up, and then the day after that. That's how you stay alive when everything collapses. One quiet, stubborn choice at a time. My name is Roosevelt. I'm 82 years old, and I'm still here because I chose to be. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, stories from a man who has lived long enough to know what actually matters, then subscribe to this channel. Stay close, because I have more to say, and Lord knows I don't have forever to say it. But I'm going to say everything I can while I still can. Don't waste the time I'm giving you. Don't waste your own.